wouldn't say it's an everyday drinker, but it is kind of the wheelhouse of I just want a solid Scotch. And I would say a solid Scotch with a little bit of Heather, Highland, the whole, some seasonal peat or whatever you want to call that. It's there. What is up, folks?
Hey guys, it is Scotch for Dummies.
For guys on the Scotch journey to help you with your next Scotch purchase.
We're heading up north, fellas,
Way north.
As far as you can go.
and then getting on a boat.
And go further north.
That's true.
To the Orkney Island.
Because I don't think
north?
there's not even like a little airport there, is there?
There probably is.
Yeah, I would
mean,
think so.
I don't know, but you go all the way up there to as far north as you can go in the big island of Scotland. You take a ferry over to Orkney, and
There's what, two
There you go.
distilleries?
there's 2 distilleries. They're a couple miles apart. Scapa, which you never hear or see anything about, and
Highland Park.
Highland Park 12, to be specific,
Highland
is what we're
Park
reviewing
12.
tonight.
This is a 12-year-old, 43% ABV whiskey, and it is going to be what I like to call super lightly peated, like really lightly peated. Now, if you are not into the peat, you will probably notice the peat.
Yeah.
If you are into the peat, you will probably not
No.
realize
Right.
that there's peat in there. Really.
not only is it lightly peated, but it's a different peat than what most
Yes.
people are, traditionally, conventionally used to, which is, Islay, and it's going to be. This is a heathery peat because it's where they're drawing the peat from is way up north on the Orkney Island.
So shrubby, florally, woody
Yeah.
kind
Exactly.
of thing,
Little more
rather
vegetable.
than the medicinal iodine sea spray kind of peat that you get down on Isla.
Yep.
So very different, and they are only putting like what 10% I think ish of the
know.
peated whiskey in with the non-peated whiskey. It is lightly peated, so.
So Highland Park's been around for a long time. It's a pretty popular brand, and they used to be mostly age stated, but I think like 4 or 5 years ago, they went to a whole kind of like new marketing thing, right? Like
Yeah, it
it's-
might be longer now. We lose 2 years for COVID somewhere along the line. But
That's true.
yeah, they redid this Viking thing, and you can tell this is the newer 12 because it says Viking Honor, and it's got all these Viking symbols on the glass. The old bottlings, the 12, the 15, and 18, they're just smooth bottles, pretty much same
That's right.
same shape,
Yep.
but smooth bottles. And you can still find those out there. They're out there. If you find a 15 or an 18, you better buy it.
Yeah, they're
True.
delicious.
True.
They're super delicious.
But here we are, the newest 12, Viking Honor. You said 43%.
Like $65, I think.
Aged in seasoned oak casks.
American and European.
All right, well, let's
So-
get to this.
All right.
Nosing. Here we go.
Funkiness in it.
Wow.
They're damn good.
Yeah, I don't know about Pete, but there is a little bit of like funky, like wet paper or
Paper mache meets
So
malty honey and
a note
Juicy
that
fruit.
I never would have said before. I do a holiday, a Christmas Advent whiskey calendar, and there's a lot of people in it. And one lady, she constantly gets wet cardboard. And when you said your comment, I was like, that reminds me of Jessica. Yeah.
Yeah, there's more to it than that, though.
now it's getting sweeter.
It is.
like
it's
that
lighting up.
that musty aroma kind of wafted off.
Little
and
like
it's,
burnt orange.
yeah,
Kinda
yeah,
going
maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
it's got some deeper, darker sugars in there. It seems like, and I get your juicy fruit, Drew, so I
smells
think there might
sweet.
be a little bit of tropical notes in it.
Okay.
You guys
I
ready?
do get a hint of malt in there.
Oh, for sure.
And some wood for sure. some
Yeah,
oak.
I didn't coat my glass well enough.
All right, on to the palate.
On to the palate.
That's actually really nice.
Peppery, right?
But
Definitely.
Not the ABV. I don't think it's the ABV. I think it's
I
the
definitely get pepper on the finish of that.
yeah, it's nice and sweet up front though.
I was gonna say it's thing. It feels like it's front forward right now. Like that's where most of my taste is coming from.
Other than the peppery finish,
Yeah.
the spicy finish.
The finish is spicier than I remember for Highland Park, to be honest. But I really liked like the sweet, malty, fruity characters that I got up on the initial sip were actually really nice, and it's more full-bodied than I like. I mean, I like Highland Park, so I assumed that it would be good. But it's been a while since I've had this.
Unfortunately, the nose after the first palate is a lot thinner than I want it to be.
Yes.
Well, you mentioned earlier too, people that understand peated whiskeys. I would say if you were to smell this one, I wouldn't think you would smell peat. Like I can kind of taste if I'm hunting for it. I know what Highland peat is, more that floral shrubbery like you mentioned. But other than that, it's not in there.
Well, I'm getting on the nose now, and I think
Yeah.
a
little bit.
I didn't get a lot of sweetness to this, but what I get, and I think Sean mentioned it, was the kind of that full-bodied mouthfeel, where it feels thick, but it's 43, so it's got to be chill filtered likely.
Yeah.
But it's got some body to it that I really enjoy. It's kind of like that meat and potatoes kind of whiskey.
I will say second sip, I get less of the pepper now. It's a little bit easier, but I get like a cedar wood type note up on the sides of the tongue. That's actually really nice. Not as sweet on the second sip. It's kind of mellowed out in that regard, but it's still got that like full-bodied, malty character to it. It's nice.
55 or 65 bucks.
I think it's
55.
55? I thought it was 65. Okay.
Yep. Total Wine says $55.
I mean, let's be realistic. That price has gone up on a 12-year, over the last 6 or 7 years. But I mean, it's not just them; it's across the board.
Right.
That's your typical price for
And
12 now.
that's still not really that outrageous, I don't think.
It's much smoother second sip. Like, I don't know if I've adjusted to it or not, but that peppering is not nearly as strong. It's a little bit more balanced. The front to back is a little bit more even. Before it was pretty much all front and then snack pepper. Now I got a lot more wood influence than what I had before.
Yeah,
I will say, I know I mentioned that it was like super lightly peated, but I don't know if it's because I know what I'm like actually looking for. But I can find the peat in this.
For sure.
It's
I'm
not
getting that.
crazy, but
the
it's
second and
there.
third sip, you get a lot of that
Yeah.
coming through. I'm getting black tea on it, some chocolate, it's less sweet for me and more of that deeper, bitter kind of flavor.
Yeah, you mentioned sour at the very beginning of the review too, and I'm wondering if I'm getting if that's some of the peat coming through a little bit, kind of pushing its way. Because I'm getting it more now than I did before with the water on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting, and the funny thing is, I'm getting a lot of distillate character. So it almost, I'm getting some young, probably Highland Park's distillate. They balanced it so that the barrels didn't overpower that distillate. A 12-year-old, if it's, I don't know where they age this. We probably need to look that up. But it doesn't have, it smells a little young, but almost well balanced. It's not like the elbows and those kind of things you get with a really young whiskey. But I do smell the distillate coming through, the malty distillate.
It's nice. I mean, it's a pretty well put together whiskey, honestly. The water that I put on it, the pepper note is gone, which is weird because it was so prominent on the first sip, and now it's not there at all.
Right, I would notice that too. But you know what's replacing it for me? Instead of that peppery finish note, I'm just getting a malt finish, which is cool. I'm
nice.
down. I
It's
do
nice.
like that.
Yep.
And there's definitely a heathery note in there. You can definitely tell that this is a northern whiskey. I'm actually rather pleased.
You know
with
what it reminds me of? Highland Park. Like this is like we've
Yeah.
done blinds before. I'm like,
I'm
it's a
actually
Highland Park. This is
pleasantly
what this
surprised.
is. It's character, right? What it has, and I really do like. I think honestly, the water. I think you have to be careful, but the water really helped it for me.
I would agree. That's a really tasty whiskey with water.
So
Good stuff.
I like the malt character to it.
I do too.
It's just a good, like, everyday backbone whiskey, I guess. So, who's going? You want
I
me
don't
to
know.
go?
Eeny, meeny,
I'm already
miny, mo.
talking.
I think you should.
All right,
Yep.
let's talk about Highland Park. I am going to rescind a few of the things that I said about Highland Park, including that you're not going to taste the peat, because I think that if you are accustomed to peat and you're paying attention, you will get the peat notes in this whiskey, right?
Sure.
But I also think that it is an approachable whiskey. So if you're not into peat and you're thinking about maybe trying out a peat, this would probably be a good one for you to try because it's not going to overwhelm you like something from Islay. And it's going to have, it's like sweeter, lighter, more approachable notes to it than a lot of the Islay scotches would have. That being said, neat, it was great. Good malt character, rich mouthfeel, good finish, long finish because of the pepper. The second sip was a little bit less. I got more of the like cedar notes and wood, and it was still a very nice dram. The fruit and the malt up front were really what I enjoyed most about it. With the water, it all just turns into like this malty, sweet, really nice, approachable whiskey that's just fun to drink, very easy. At $55, it's pretty, like, I'm not gonna feel bad about pouring 2 or 3 glasses of this and not worrying about it, right? I don't think that it has a lot of like the extra characters that would bump it up the number scale for me. So I'm gonna give it a solid 2.5. Thought about giving it a 3, but it's just missing some of that depth and complexity that I look for in those 3s and 3.5s. But I think for the price point and just the character that gives you, it's a solid 2.5. It's definitely above average whiskey.
I'm gonna come out of the gate and say 3.
There you go.
There you go. You said a lot of good things about it. I definitely agree with the vast majority of them. I'm getting, I really appreciate the malt characteristic on it. Neat, the first sip was probably a little over the top spicy for me. It was definitely peppery. But it was cool, I was into it, and it mellowed out after that. And then, like I said, the first nose after the first palate was thin, but it came back too. Water actually didn't hurt it at 43%. I was pretty careful with it. I mean, I think you can definitely overwater this one, but it really brought that maltiness out, which I really like. Yeah, you can get the peat. It's in there. If you know what you're looking for, you'll get it. I commonly recommend Highland Park for people who want to get into peat, but they've said, oh, the last time I started with it and I hated it. Well, this is a really good stepping stone. While you were talking, I took another sip and I was starting to get some of those oak vanillas that were blending in with the malt on the finish, and I was like, man, this is really solid. This is good. Pleasantly surprised. I didn't come into this thinking I was going to give it a 3. I thought I was going to be somewhere between a 2 and a 2.5 because it's been a long time since I've had Highland Park 12. Really impressed. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say this is a great everyday drinker whiskey. It maybe for some $55 a bottle is a little overpriced for every day, but this is a good, like, this is Scotch whiskey. It's got the peat, a little bit of peat in it, all the things that everybody said already, so I'm not going to go through those again. I think it's great whiskey. Well, okay, it's not a great whiskey. It is a good whiskey that you should have on your bar. I don't give it, so the reason I'd say that is a great whiskey is like a 3.5 kind of whiskey. This is not that. It's a decent price. It's a solid whiskey. It's a 2.5 for me, and I think that's about right because it's one of those ones where you don't have to have it on your bar, but if you come across it, you want to drink it. And if you want a kind of that transition whiskey, you want it on your bar.
Right.
Well, I don't have a whole lot to add. I mean,
Yeah.
they said everything.
A number.
I mean, I can get a number for sure. I think I'll kind of dovetail on your sake and say that this is, I wouldn't say it's an everyday drinker, but it is kind of the wheelhouse of I just want a solid Scotch. And I would say a solid Scotch with a little bit of Heather, Highland, the whole, some seasonal peat or whatever you want to call that. It's there. It's hard to find it, but it's there. I think the water is actually helping a lot. I really appreciate it with water more than anything else. Other than that, I mean, everything you guys said is spot on, honestly. I think for $55, it's a good price. As Sean said, it doesn't really have a whole lot of bells and whistles. It's just solid. It's hitting well above the belt. I'm going to give it a 2.5 as well.
There you go.
All righty. Well, I guess I'm a sucker.
2.5, 2.53, so what, 2.625?
Well, yeah,
Niner.
Niner over.
Something like that.
Hard.
Highland Park
So,
12.
Yeah, 43%. $55. Give it a shot, man.
Absolutely.
Skol.
Skol.
2, 1.